and we're none the wiser. The NHL trade period is here. And it's funny. You would hear a bunch of hockey podcasts over the last little bit talking about how annoying it was that, oh man, there's been no movement. There's been no trades. That nothing's been happening lately. Where have all the trades gone? And then all of a sudden you get boom, 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 boom. We get Seth Jones is traded. This guy traded. It just felt like Saturday, all of a sudden there was a wave of a bunch of shit happening, and it became a whole lot of fun. Yeah, it was a bit of a buzz on the weekend there. Yeah, the stream so far. And we're going to talk about, ooh, look, shiny, yes. And yeah, shout out Toxic Indeeds, also both talking about the ADHD in the chat. I will say, I'm kicking it old school. I only have ADD. Despite what you see from me today, there isn't a whole lot hyper about your boy. So it's just ADD for me. But either way, Vyvanse works for both of those things. On that note, swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Okay, to this hockey trade. The Chicago Blackhawks trade Seth Jones and a 2026 fourth to the Florida Panthers for Spencer Knight and a 2026 first. I think overall, this is a win-win, but it is a bit more of a solid win for one and a little bit more of a high-risk win for the other. We'll start with Chicago. I think this makes a ton of sense for Chicago, and I think this is a really good move for the Blackhawks. You turn a defenseman who wasn't going to hang around into a goalie who a lot of people viewed as a franchise goalie not too long ago. And a goalie that Panthers fans, I think, were kind of banking on helping to kind of continue a bit of a run with this franchise. And obviously there was some stuff off the ice, and it seems like he has got that figured out. But there was a lot going on around this guy. And so I don't want to say maybe his value was low, because I don't think it was. But for Chicago, this is a no-brainer type of a move. Seth Jones didn't really want to be there. We mentioned that. And now you turn it into a goalie of the future. And ask any rebuilding team, aside from the aforementioned Calgary Flames, ask any of those teams, what is the hardest part of coming out of the rebuild? It's, let's figure out the goalie. Well, maybe they figured out the goalie now. You at least give yourself a goalie of the future. And those are very difficult to come by in a legitimate sort of a sense. They have been trying to piece together the goalie position there with Mrazek and all of that. And obviously this was not a team that was super hell-bent on being competitive or anything like that. Although I think there was a little bit of trying there. And Mrazek being the best option they had between the pipes is suboptimal, I would say. And so I think Chicago has kind of recognized that they were not ready for Connor Bedard. And, well, I mean, they were very much ready to get the draft pick that got them Connor Bedard. They were not ready then to take full advantage of him. And so now if you have a goalie, you can at least mask a few of those deficiencies and allow Connor Bedard to have a little bit more wiggle room, and there's just a little bit more margin for error when you have a goalie who can be that franchise type of a guy. And so I just think this is such a smart move, for Chicago, to get that goalie in there and just solidify that part of it. And now you can try to find some of those other high-level pieces to piece around a Connor Bedard. And you only have to retain a little bit of salary going up. A little bit of salary going forward with the salary cap going up. So again, it makes a little bit of sense for them because you're basically, this isn't exactly how money works, but you're kind of getting it for free salary cap wise because the cap is expected to go up so much over the next little while that an extra $2.5 million, whatever, you deal with that. And by the time that contract is off the books, then you are in kind of a position where Bedard might be a little bit more expensive, whatever, but you have been able to at least fill a few spots around Connor Bedard. So I have no problem with that one as well. And it gives them a little bit more draft capital to make a few moves with. They said that in the press release, or in talking to the media, I forget which one, but they were talking about, all right, well, this gives us another draft, or a bit more draft capital to go into the market with. I don't think they're expecting to use this draft pick. I think that they kind of recognize that things need to go in a different direction in Chicago very quickly because of Connor Bedard. And I think the real realization around that was Bedard not making the Four Nations roster. And that at the beginning of the year, that seemed almost like a lock. So I think that kind of woke them up. Like we are not taking advantage of this generational talent that we have. And this isn't just, oh, we got Taves and Kane, and then we went off and won a bunch of games. They had guys around him, right? Or guys around them, sorry, that helped. And they tried that with Taylor Hall. It didn't work. Foligno didn't work. Tyler Bertuzzi predictably didn't work. They kind of understand they need to go out and get like some pieces to build around this guy now. And so by adding this draft capital, but having it be in 2026, it allows you a little bit of wiggle room to use that in future trades to really start to bolster this, because you're not going to bolster them at the deadline. But you are probably this offseason going to look to make a few moves to bring some solid players around Connor Bedard. And so having this be a 2026 draft pick just gives you a little bit more time to work with that and find some players of value. So I think this was a really smart move for the Blackhawks. With exactly where they are kind of supposed to be right now. The Panthers, for them, it's an all-in type of a move. Knight is your goalie of the future, but this team is win now. And I don't think Knight was so far away that like you couldn't possibly keep him around, but the focus is supposed to be winning this year. And so goalie of the future matters a little bit less when you have goalie of the now, who was spectacular in the postseason last year, albeit a little inconsistent at times in the rest of his career. But you have a guy who, at his best, can be a guy who can steal games for you. So use this now as a trade chip to go out and improve your hockey team. So I understand the go for it move. And Jones is the exact type of player that Florida was looking for. A veteran defenseman on the right side, a guy who not swimming in playoff experience, but a guy who is swimming in NHL experience and is still good. The problem is Chicago, as mentioned, only retains a little bit of money on this one, and that contract, it still feels like a touch of an overpay. So it kind of knocks him down a little bit in value. And I feel like it is, to a large extent, kind of like what's happened with Darnell Nurse, where we see the contracts, like, oh, this guy's not a $9.5 million player, and so we automatically assume he sucks, because he is not playing up to the level of his contract. He's not a $9.5 million defenseman. He's still a good defenseman in the NHL. I don't even know if he's a $7 million defenseman, though, and that's what Florida is paying for him right now. So it is not without risk on the Panthers side of things, because you gave up a lot to get this guy in. You are giving up $7 million in salary cap space. You are giving up goalie of the future, and you are giving up a first round pick next year. So you're giving up a lot to bring this guy in. Now, if it works, this is a championship level team again, right? Like the blue line was the strength of this team. Well, one of them, when they went on their run in the Stanley Cup final. You lose a piece of that with Montour, and I think I would still rather have Montour than I would Seth Jones, but you at least now can kind of backfill that a little bit, and you have a pretty solid blue line there, and one that can help you out in the postseason again. So if Jones plays up to his contract, then this is an absolute home run. Even if he just plays up to what he can be, I think this is a very solid move for the Blackhawks, and one that I think puts pressure on the rest of the teams in a fairly wide open Eastern Conference. Like I said, overall, I like this for both teams. I think it is the type of move that you make and the type of swing that you take when you are a cup favorite like the Florida Panthers, and I think it is a fantastic return for a rebuilding team and adding a key core piece and a first-round pick to play around with. So I think a very, very solid trade made by both teams, although one team taking on a little bit more risk than the other.